question is, what is your story in 1 minute? Asked by Maddie from UBC.
Okay, so my story in 1 minute. Well, are you going to time me on this one?
No.
But well, my story is I was born in Hong Kong. I came here when I was 3 years old. So I grew up here in Vancouver, British Columbia. Went to school, high school in North Delta, senior secondary. And then went to UBC, specialized in materials engineering at UBC. Graduated in 2007, and I worked at another company called Levelton in the beginning of my career. Did a lot of mechanical testing, did a lot of, I would say, grunt work, doing everything that I could get my hands on. Then started moving into project work, and in 2013, I moved over to Powertech Labs, where now I'm involved with a lot of coatings and corrosion work, and also a lot of different types of failure analysis and studies. And now I've transitioned into the team lead for the Materials Solutions group at Powertech Labs. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
Thank you very much for sharing it. The next question is, how is the job opportunities affected by COVID-19?
I think, yes, there has been an effect definitely for the job opportunities, especially in the first few months. We saw a lot of companies pull back on a lot of operations, hence, pulling back on hiring was one of them. And our company as well, Powertech, did pull back on a lot of hiring. But now that we're getting into kind of the phase 2 and 3s, and we're starting to open up, a lot of companies are starting to look at hiring. So there will be a lot of opportunities coming forth in the next few months, I would say. So just keep posted to job boards. Don't kind of lose hope that, especially if you're graduating in this climate, there will be opportunities out there. But again, there will be some things that we'll probably discuss in more detail during this interview on some of those advantages that you might want to seek.
Thank you. The next question is, given that networking and career fairs are not possible during COVID-19, how would you recommend students to go about approaching industries for job opportunities?
Yeah, so this is a good segue from the last question. I would say for me, a lot of if I'm hiring, I'm going to be looking, especially because there's no job fairs or no way to reach directly to students, I'm going to be looking at getting recommendations from professors or getting recommendations from either like the co-op office, or I'll be looking for those students that are more proactive. So one of the suggestions that I would make for students is that, if you're interested in a company, you can always ask for an informational interview. So this is doesn't tie to any job or anything that's at the company. You just want to find out more about the company. And if they're interested, they will set up an informational interview and let you know about the company. You can ask questions about them. I would suggest bringing a good list of questions and kind of diving in and researching the company beforehand, before doing these informational interviews, and show your interest in the company. Other than that, keep looking at job boards, keep looking at company websites. There will be postings out there. And yeah, I think those are some of my tips on what's possible during COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is, given the COVID-19 situation, what additional skills would distinguish your top candidates? Asked by Shada from UBC.
Yeah, I don't, with the COVID-19 situations, I don't think it really changes the kind of skills that I would look for, but in terms of skills is really experience and knowledge of the subjects, and then also a very keen attitude towards the role, right? So those are kind of the three things I would look for. I know that for a lot of new grads, experience is hard to come by, but even volunteering experience that in some areas that are related, and being able to demonstrate kind of those soft skills that are applicable to the job, that's kind of critical as well. And that goes with like the keen attitude, right? If you really want the job, you show your interest in the job, show that you really want this job and you really think you would be a good fit for the job, for the role.
Thank you. And how can I use NACE for networking opportunities in this situation?
My opinion of any society, not just NACE, is that it's not only an investment in terms of networking. I think it's an investment in your knowledge as well. The things you learn from these societies, the practical knowledge, the industry knowledge that you'll gain, the kind of the magazines and the articles that you get from them, the resources that you get from those societies, I think is invaluable for your career in general, not just for networking opportunities. So in this kind of climate, obviously networking is a little tough, as we spoke about, but I would invest in NACE and in other societies for the knowledge, and also just getting to know other industry players is key in this climate as well. Whether or not there is job opportunities from them, as long as you know them and get to understand what the industry does, how the industry works, that will give you a leg up in terms of your interviews and your future interactions with some of these people as well.
Thanks.
No problem.
What suggestion you can give for the new graduates, without industry working experience, how to help them get the first job? Asked by Kathy from UBC.
Yeah, this is a very typical problem for a lot of new grads, and don't feel that you're really behind if you don't have any experience. Experience does play a good part. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say that, oh well, it's okay, but I would say what a employer will look for more than just experience is really the attitude that you bring to a role, and you being able to demonstrate that you are keen for the role, but also bringing those soft skills as well. So for example, if you're getting into a role that it has a lot to do with project management, there will be questions asked of you on, give me a situation where you've managed other people or worked with other people and a conflict has come up. So a good answer to that will get you through that interview at the end of the day, and maybe overshadow some of the experience concerns. So things like that. And I would say, I know that there's a lot of people that think that, well, I just came out of university, I should aim for a certain level of employment, a certain level of job. I say any job is invaluable in terms of you gaining those soft skills and gaining skills in terms of just being able to interact with other people, being able to organize your role, being able to organize your work day. Those kind of things are all, what employers look for when they're hiring. It's more than just the knowledge and expertise. It's also those soft skills.
Thanks. What are some of the skills and strengths and a newly employed candidate needs to develop in order to adopt working from home?
Yeah, this working from home thing, I think is going to stay for a little while, and I'll be honest that it's very tough to learn new things and start a new role from working from home. And now that offices are opening back up, I would encourage that if you're in a new role and you're given a choice between working at home or working in the office, I'd take going to the office to work. that gives you a little bit more background with, interaction with other people in the office. If you have a question on something, you can talk to someone, albeit socially distanced and with a mask on, but you can talk to someone directly and get an answer pretty quickly. Whereas if you're at home, it's tough, and it will take a lot of your own research and your own diving into knowledge and calling people and bugging people over the phone to get that answer. So yeah, my feeling is that the office still has a place in this world, and definitely as a new grad, please take advantage of it. And as a new person in your new role, take advantage of it and try to gain as much knowledge and as much onboarding as you can directly at the office and rather than at home.
Yeah, thank you. Is it a good idea to start my career with joining a startup company?
Definitely. I think that's one thing that a lot of people think, startups are risky. They are, but you're also at the beginning of your career, so you can take a lot of risks. So it's something that I think is very invaluable. Is taking on a startup role means typically that you take on a lot of different hats. So typically startup companies are small, they have very minimal staff. So they may ask you to do 2, 3, 4, or 5 things at once and take on these different roles. And that's invaluable for your career down the line. Not only A, in that you'll gain a lot of different skills, but B, you can also determine which direction that you want to be in, right? You may get into a startup role and say, oh, hey, I actually don't like R&D. I actually like the business side more. And that gives you a path to go down. Whereas if you start with a big company and you have a very defined role, you're kind of stuck in that role until you find the next opportunity, right? So I think joining a startup is definitely something that is recommended. Yeah, you'll take some risks on possible, your career in terms of, okay, if the startup doesn't survive, then I might not have a job. But those skills are always going to be transferable, and there's always going to be an opportunity down the line. And with your kind of experience in a startup and experience in different areas and different roles, I think that gives you a leg up in terms of finding those next opportunities.
Thank you. And it's a very common question. Any tips for an interview?
Any tips for interviews? So I come back to having a very keen attitude. You got to come across as you really wanting the role. There's a lot of people that play it calm, play it cool out there, and don't kind of display their keenness for the role, and that's usually what an interviewer takes back from that is that this person's not interested, or they have another job lined up, or they have something else lined up that they're just going through the motions. The other thing that is very important is practice, practice, practice. Practice your interviews. Don't be embarrassed. Practice with your friends, practice with your, somebody that is not close with you or a third party, just to get their reaction, for them to give you pointers on how it went and ways that you can improve. It's critical that you practice interviews. It's not a natural talent. Interviewing is definitely not a natural talent. It takes time and kind of experience to navigate a good interview. But yeah, practice like as much as you can. Go for as many interviews as you can. Like it doesn't matter, even if it's an interview for McDonald's, do it. Or other roles, do it just to get the experience, right? At the end of the day, it's all about experience. Then you'll be able to see, especially with some of the interviews that are more I would say soft skill driven, or behaviorally driven. They'll ask you questions that may not have anything to do with the role, but they're looking for you to answer it in a certain way. So you won't be able to know that until you actually get into one of those interviews and are able to get through it. And find examples. The other thing is always find examples for your soft skills. So when somebody asks you, well, how would you do this and why? don't just answer how. Give them an example at the end of the day. Like if they ask you to say, oh well, are you good with certain equipment? You can say yes, but then don't just stop there. Give an example of how you use that equipment, a time that you used it, and what you did with it. That'll give them a bit more background and be able to say, okay, well, this person knows how to use this piece of equipment, or how to navigate this skill, or has a certain level of skill in this. So definitely find examples for everything that you answer.
Yeah. Thank you. The next question is, there might be new interest to move to green energy resources. How do you think it may affect the current status, and will it put a limit on the funding and opportunities for the oil industry, for example?
Yeah, this is a very deep question. In some respects, it's very difficult to answer this question because of course, we're still in it. We're still a very much a hydrocarbon-driven economies, and I think as the world hopefully transitions into a greener and more sustainable type of industry, a lot of these industries that support the oil and gas and the oil and gas companies themselves are going to pivot that way. So my opinion is that what we'll see is a lot of these industries adapting to green technologies and pivoting towards that. Instead of whole sectors being eliminated or dismantled, we're just going to see a shift. And ultimately, I don't think that's going to really affect a lot of jobs or affect a lot of careers. It's just going to change the trajectory of a lot of people's careers and trajectory of a lot of companies' kind of focus or goals at the end of the day. So, yeah, my opinion at the end of the day is it'll probably just be a shift and less likely be kind of a wholesale change in the industry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. We are almost at the end of our 20 minutes interview. So if I didn't ask anything that you think it's important for students to know at this stage, feel free to add it, please.
Well, the one thing I'll add is that thank you for being part of the NACE Student Section, and I hope all of you decide to continue on when you graduate to join our NACE BC section as well. I think these things, especially what you've put together here, Youssef, is very invaluable. And I think as your career moves on, societies like ours, like NACE or ASM or other societies, they're going to be critical in your career in terms of A, not only getting you a job, but B, also expanding your knowledge as you go into your career and helping you network with other, like-minded individuals, but also potential clients and potential, industry partnerships and potential collaborations. So all of this stems from, these societies. So definitely be a part of these societies, volunteer if you can, and keep these societies, as old as they may be, keep them going because they're quite valuable to our industry.
Thank you very much. At